Hello, everyone. It has been a minute. Welcome to episode 33 on the Ask Zoe Hub podcast. And as you know, the Hub is all about business development and marketing on a do-it-yourself basis, but with a community that supports you with a bunch of experts too. So the topic for the month of May is all about to sell or not to sell, and that is the question. Now, you may be thinking, well, what do you mean by that, Zoe? And it very much came organically with our expert following meeting at an exhibition down in Milton Keynes and talking about what we feel small business owners always fear when it comes to selling. And that is the follow-up. We avoid it. Put our head in the sands with it. We say we're not getting business, and I'll always say the question, when was the last time you followed up? And I've got a great testimonial to share you within this podcast with a recent client called Nikki as well. So I'm not just a marketing expert, it's about holistically that business development side too. So we bring in experts in all areas of business development to help you succeed as a small business owner. And the topic of sales, as Helen will tell you, is the lifeblood of small businesses, very much in the early stage, but very much when you grow and you get fully established too. So we have an expert, you can see her on screen, but if you are listening to this through Spotify and Google and Apple Play, I'm just going to hand you over to the lovely Helen to introduce herself for this episode. So Helen, take it away. Tell us who you are and where you're from. Sounds like blind
Hi.
date, doesn't it?
Yeah. Hi, Zoe. Thank you. What a lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. My name's Helen Coston. I am a sales coach and trainer. I work with lots and lots of small business owners and also in-house sales teams as well. And my mission, my ethos is all around um, you know, winning work, but also feeling good at the same time. I'm not a believer in sort of sleazy manipulation or, kind of old school sales tactics or just that kind of hustle or getting so almost tricking people into selling. For me, it's all about consultative, building relationships with clients. And if you feel that there is something you can offer and something that you can help a potential client with, then putting yourself forward in a really kind of strategic way that will work well for your business. So yes, I'm all about feeling good at the same time as actually doing that process of selling as well.
Definitely, and that very much came through when we met you at the Milton Keynes exhibition, and we very much kind of was attracted in reference to our stalls. We came and had a conversation, and vice versa, and really talked about kind of what we did, and there was a lot of synergies, with what we do, and our focus very much is strategy and marketing and business development, as I know yours is very much about sales and making sure selling is understood across the board, and especially for the small business owner market, and that they don't fear the topic of selling, and they don't fear actually picking up that phone or fear going into that networking event or sales meeting. So in your perspective, Helen, across the board with the businesses that you've worked with, why do you think that is? Why do you think small business owners fear that follow-up or feel that sales conversation?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, Zoe. And I think if the first thing is if you do fear it and you hear that word sales and you immediately just grimace and think, oh God, that's part of the business. The last thing I want to do is you're absolutely not alone. I speak to so many people that just hate that aspect of their business, and the reason why I focus so much in my own coaching and training about feeling good is that if you can get to the point where you're actually enjoying the process and you're not fearing it, but you're actually quite liking that process of building relationships and winning new business, it's really transformative. Suddenly it's not the last, it's a bit like going to the gym. If you can get to the point where you're actually enjoying working out and you're enjoying enjoying the process of feeling fit and healthy, you're going to go, you're going to show up, you're going to want to do it. And that's where I try to get my clients to with sales. I think it's the reason why so many people kind of just hate that word and try to avoid it wherever they can is just that connotations that come with it. I think we all think of, slightly dodgy secondhand car salespeople. We think
Yeah,
of like, being tricked on the phone or asked to get your credit card out while you're on a sales call, or,
yeah,
some of these kind of really old school techniques. And, I'm sure Zoe, you know, if your members and community are just like you, they're consultative, they're, you know, they're really thoughtful people, and the last thing we want to do is portray ourselves in that way. So
Yeah,
people kind of sort of turn against it and just think, no, but
yeah,
I just don't want to do it. And we have to,
yeah.
unfortunately, we have to sell to win business for our, you know, for our own businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I don't like to sales. And I was like, okay, so is it that you don't like to have conversations? And they'll go, pardon? And I'd be like, because
Yeah,
that to me is the
selling. Yeah,
basis of selling.
yeah.
It's a good conversation and it's listening, it's active listening. I mean, we have a mentor, Caroline, who's within the hub, and that the members and the community have probably heard before if they've been subscribed to our channel. And she very much says you've got two of these of one of these. So make
I
sure
love
you're
that.
like, in terms of anyone listening to this, two ears and one mouth, that's what I mean. You know, and that's very much the art for me of, you know, a good conversation is a good sales conversation.
Mm,
And, you know, they, if you're actively listening, they will tell you if they need your services. And people buy on that need and want, don't they? But again, it's very much what you say. No one likes a pushy car salesman. Nobody wants to be avoiding the clipboard in the street.
mm,
And that to me is sales done in the wrong way, because
absolutely.
that's not listening to anybody. That's, you know, trying to sell before listening. And that's, I think, what a lot of people have that perception of sales being, and it's just not that. Do you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. In fact, I mean, there's a lot of definitions of sort of sales and what that word means, but
Mhm.
one that I absolutely love that I came across a long time ago was sales is earning the right to make a recommendation. So you don't just jump straight in and say like, I'm going to, you know, buy my stuff, buy my services. It's about having that conversation, building up the relationship with somebody, listening to what their own challenges and problems are, and if it's the right time, if it feels good to do so, can I make you a recommendation, Zoe? You know, can I make a suggestion here? And it's
Yeah.
saying, you know, it's not just jumping in; it's asking permission to do it. And I think if you can think
Mhm.
that way and just think, I'm going to have a conversation with somebody, we'll see where it goes,
Yeah.
rather than the purpose of this meeting is for me to get money out of
Mhm.
somebody. It's just a different mindset. You're showing up so much more authentically as you and so
Yeah.
much more genuinely.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I love that it's the right to make a recommendation, because it's that interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the, you know, taking down that barrier. And, you know, a lot of people feed back to me that they fear that follow-up because the fear of that rejection and that no. And we sometimes say, well, don't think of it at that, think of it's one step closer to a yes. And to treat, you know, that time in your diary as productive, and, you know, to get you to where you want to be and serving the customer
Yeah.
right, you know, by that asking for that recommendation and asking permission, because they will tell you guys, they will tell you if they need your services. It's just about listening and making sure, as Helen's just said, you know, ask for permission, ask
That's
for
it.
recommendation.
Yeah, that's it. And do you know what, suddenly things feel so different. You might be in that call, and because you're doing this really good
Mm.
stuff, you know, you're using the two ears on your head instead of your mouth,
Yeah.
as you say, and you're actually deep listening to what a client's going through or what they need. It may
Yeah.
occur to you at that point, actually, you can't help them.
Mhm.
They're not going to be the
Yeah.
right client for you. You might hear some red flags that
Yeah.
mean that they're not going to necessarily be somebody that you even want to work
Mhm.
with. And there's something really powerful in just saying, look, I understand everything you're saying. I've listened really carefully. I don't think I'm the right person for you because of this.
Yeah.
However, there is somebody I know that I could recommend. And
Yeah.
you will have this amazing relationship with that person afterwards,
Mhm.
because they will really appreciate the fact that you've been so honest with them. So
Yeah.
sales is a two-way thing. It's about whether they're right for you as well as you're right for them. And
Yeah.
coming from it as just this exploratory place is
Yeah.
just helps with confidence a lot as well, I think.
Yeah, I do. And I think it's also about meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
So we had this in a networking event not so long ago, and somebody came up to me and said, I recommended you to a client because they met another consultant a couple of months ago and they couldn't meet them where they're at. And she knows me quite well. She's known me from 2017. So she's known me a good 8 years. And she's like, you have that ability, I know, to meet someone where they're at.
Yeah.
So can you have a conversation? And we had that conversation and we've just been back and forth, giving them, advice, sending them resources to what they told us. And they've come to a point now where they've said, actually, Zoe, we do think you are, we've done our due diligence. We do think you are the right consultant to take us to that next step. Now, we're yet to decide on that date and we're yet to progress on that next step. But, a lot of people, I think, as well, fear sales because they need sales there and then.
Yes.
And if they
Yeah.
don't get them, that panic sets in and then that fear, and then they'll
Yeah.
stop doing it because they'd feel it's not working. And
Yeah.
I'll say that happens when you don't treat that time, and give yourself them boundaries and ask yourself permission to do that on a regular basis, because you don't want to do sales in urgency, because I think that then creates sometimes the wrong relationship. So it's just about, I think, thinking for you listening to this as a small business owner, where am I at right now? When do I need to start having these conversations? Because unless it's an e-commerce product,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's completely different strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Sales through conversation very much needs to happen and to continue to happen until it's at the right time for them and asking permission, obviously, as Helen's rightly said. So what's your experience, Helen, for anyone who's not heard of you or met you before within the community or through our LinkedIn audience? Where did it all start for you in the world of sales?
Oh wow. So my first, after I graduated, I was like, I want to work for a magazine. I liked the idea of like being in publishing, and so I got a job as a salesperson. Actually, I was selling advertising like way back. I feel really old, Zoe, saying this, but like the internet was still quite young, and digital publishing and content just was just so far off where it is now. So magazines were
Yeah.
still very popular as a kind of form of content. So I started selling advertising space, and I was so lucky because I sat next to somebody who was towards the end of his career. He was just the most brilliant salesperson I've ever met to date. Like he's one of those people, he'd ring up a client within 30 seconds, they were just laughing. Like, and he'd walk into a room and Jim was his name. They'd be like, Jim. And he was the sales. And I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be the person that people like. And, that he just has these good conversations with. And
Yeah.
he taught me everything. I was just so lucky. I took various other sort of sales roles, and I joined a content marketing agency. I kind of progressed through. I started out there sort of junior sales, and I kind of progressed into more senior business development role.
Yeah.
I then started out as a sales trainer and coach back in 2019. The business has changed a lot. I'm doing a lot more work with kind of small business owners as well, and teaching
Yeah.
non-sales professionals like the art of being able to sell and feel more confident. And yeah, I absolutely love it. And like you, Zoe, I receive lots of referrals and lots of inbound. So it always makes us feel good, I think, to know that
Yeah.
what you do has that value out there. So yeah,
Oh,
absolutely love it. Love working with people.
yeah, 100%. And that's, I think, for me, what sales and marketing is. It's about people, isn't it? And what I heard there is quite well, I mean, we've said this before at the exhibition, like very similar synergies and backgrounds. But what I heard there is kind of you saw something in someone, in terms of that mentor, kind of leader, the person that you thought, saw and think, wow, that he has everyone laughing and he builds that rapport, because that's sales as well, isn't it? It's conversations, it's rapport. But for us, it was very much meeting Caroline Bounds through Hilton, and she was the learning and development manager for the district. And we got on so well that she became my work mum, and she kind of put me under her wing. And
Oh,
very much a lot of people, when they see me out networking now, they don't realise that I couldn't do a 40 seconds pitch. I used to do a 4 seconds pitch because my nerves would be shot. And this
yeah.
is like very early on 2010. So showing my age there as well. And I
I think we're
remember
both
her
feeling
being
old now.
able to like give me really useful tips in terms of how she would approach things, and really took me under her wing for the 5 years that I was in Hilton in terms of sales and training and learning and development. And so much so we got on that well that when she got transferred over into Dubai to work for like the Conrads and the Waldorf Astorias, I didn't go with her, but I went on holiday with her. Like,
Oh,
and that's how
I love
well
that.
like we get on. Like in it's because of relationships, and it's because
Yeah,
of how she made me feel, and that she told me that it would be okay. And yes, we can lose our way. And then I met Caroline in 2016, who became a mentor and very much facilitated what Caroline did. But I think it's what I took from that is you saw something in someone and realized, I wanted a piece of that because of how they made you feel and how
exactly.
he
Yeah,
guided you, and as Caroline, guided
exactly.
ourselves
Yeah,
within our journey in terms of employment into self-employment, definitely.
yeah,
So
100%.
why do you believe this challenge happens on a regular basis? Because what I've found, I don't know if you were the same, Helen, is we can work with a small business owner and we can talk about the importance of following up. We can talk about the importance of ensuring that the sales activities in the diary every week and diarised as is
Mm,
important. It's not something to be forgotten.
yeah,
But everyone normally feeds back in time. I forgot to do that, Zoe, because I got too busy.
right.
So why do you think that challenge occurs when we, try to get them comfortable with selling?
And
Why do you
following up.
think it gets put on the non-urgent list with the clients that you work with?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the actual kind of process of selling and just allocating time, I think, I work with so many small businesses. I just don't have time to do it this week. And actually, um, it's when we kind of dig deep and we perhaps do some coaching around this.
Mhm.
It's usually linked with I don't want to do it. I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
I'd rather do literally anything else in most people. So we kind of fab in our minds. I think we think, oh well, we're just too
Mhm.
busy to do it, and that's why I focus so much on that kind of win work but feel good, because
Yeah.
if you can get to that point where you're enjoying it, you you will find time, and you'll start realizing the impact that it has on your business, and that will make you want to do it a whole lot more.
Yeah.
In regards to following up, I think it's a very, very similar feeling. Lots of people I say, I don't want to follow up. Why I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be pushy. I've given them everything they need. They'll just come back to me if they
Mhm.
want to, or they perhaps don't come, they haven't necessarily replied, and that can feel very frustrating. And
Mhm.
especially if if you're and to anyone listening here who's a solo business owner, it
Mhm.
feels really personal. This came as such a shock to me when I started my own business. I'd spent years, I was very, very good at selling,
Mhm.
at business development. I had a really good track record. And day one of my new business, I thought, well, if there's one thing I can do, it's sell. And then people would like not reply. And I was like, what's wrong? This is me. This
Mhm.
is like personal. And yeah, that was a huge steep learning curve for me. Was
Mhm.
actually it's not personal, but it feels it. It can feel really
Mhm.
personal. And I think try to separate feelings from it, and that if they don't, it's not a personal
Mhm.
attack at you necessarily if somebody hasn't replied. There could be other stuff going on within their own business. Sometimes, yeah, there's no excuse for it, and it's just rude, and people ghosting is such a horrible thing for people to go
Yeah.
through. um, but I
Yeah.
do recommend following up. I've got some ideas that might help, which I can
Mhm.
share, Zoe, if you'd
Yeah.
like me to. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say if you have a sales process, let me just go through what typical, like a lot of small business owner will do. Let's say they're on LinkedIn, they've got a blog, they've got a website, they've got this kind of
Mhm.
online presence. At some point, somebody might come forward and say, hi Zoe, hi Helen. I'm a small business owner. I've come across you, and I'd like to have a conversation. And most people then book in that call. They might have a meeting either in person or over the phone. And during that meeting, you're going to be doing a lot of the stuff that we were talking about earlier around lots of listening, lots of understanding what's
Mhm.
going on with the client, not just going, right, let me tell you about this, let me tell you about that, but actually just letting the client speak. Your
Mhm.
time will come for you to talk about yourself, but really put the client first and really understand what they're saying. And you have this lovely meeting quite often at the end of that, a client will say, well, all sounds great. Could you send me an email? Could you send me a summary? Could you send me a
Mhm.
proposal? Something like that. We get it sent out. And then that moment is then needed to follow up, whether that's a few days later or a week later, depending on your own business
Yeah.
processes. In order to help with that follow-up process, I would just, if we go back into that sales conversation, that sales
Mhm.
meeting, that intro call, whatever you call it, towards the end of that, when you're talking about what you're going to send and all this kind of, more practical stuff that's come out of this conversation, I would just say, Zoe, I've really, really enjoyed having this conversation. I'm really happy to get all that, all those details across to you. From your perspective, what's happening? How long do you need to have a look through that? Is there anybody else you need to speak with?
Mhm.
I appreciate it's a big decision for you. What are your timings on this? And just
Mhm.
asking that question nice and openly, not aggressively or anything like that. You might just hear things back like, look, I'm on holiday for 2 weeks. Realistically, I'm not even going to look at this until June. Or
Yeah.
I've got a call with my marketing director, but it's not until 3 weeks from now. So I probably can't get back to you before then. You're going to start to hear
Mhm.
snippets and insights into what's going on in their into their business, which hopefully will
Mhm.
help you shape a good moment to follow up that will work for them. But
Yeah.
also, if they say, give me a week, let me think it over and I'll get back to you,
Mhm.
you are well within your rights to follow up after a week, as they've
Mhm.
said that you can. So that hopefully will give you that confidence to say, hi Zoe, it's been a
Mhm.
week. I know you needed a little time to think about it. Just wondered if you come to a
Mhm.
decision. It's on them because they've told you that's how long they need to, and it just makes that process feel a little bit less um
Mhm.
salesy, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. It's that language piece, isn't it? And
Mm,
I very much agree about, agreeing with them there and then at the time to follow up. And it's the best time to get a higher response rate. So we agree, Helen, we tend to say, so what would you like the next action to be?
yeah,
Would you like a proposal? Would you like to proceed? Because you're indicating that you would, but is there anything else, that you need to know right now before making that decision? And alternatively, then I just stop. Silence is golden.
it is
And
absolutely.
allow them to tell you what they're thinking. So they may say, yeah, I think so, but so we had it from the Milton Keynes exhibition. He literally on the phone said, yeah, yeah, so I think so. I think we'll go ahead with the middle option. And I was like, great. So what do you need to do now? What's the next steps for you? And he says, well, I need to just speak to my business partner and then we'll come back to you and think we'll go ahead. What I should have said then, guys, is okay, would you like to, go and speak to her now? Would you like me to book you in a little bit later today or tomorrow so we can get you all set up? What I didn't, I basically allowed the sale to go away. I allowed the sale to, because now I've not heard anything, in terms of
Okay,
that follow up.
yeah,
I think that really that was not a genuine reason, that was an excuse to not make a decision right then.
yes.
And some people will do that. I mean, we can all resonate with that, can't we? Someone says, oh, yes, I just need to speak to X. And what I should have done is what I tell people to do. And I should have said, not a problem, James. What I can do is next week or tomorrow, whatever that day works for my diary, I have 10 o'clock or I have 2 o'clock available that day. Which time works for you? We'll pencil that in now. And that gives you X amount of days to review, consult, and we'll get it in the diary now.
Yeah,
So you don't have to think about telling me what you want to do and we can discuss it and proceed from that call. I didn't do that. And it's because I felt like they were, more or less they're ready to go ahead, but they
mm,
wasn't. So, we can, even as expert guys listening to this, still get it wrong, but 100% what Helen says there, put that follow-up into that first
yeah,
conversation and agree with them when you are going to follow up, because you will have a better response rate and you'll have something to follow up with. Like Helen has said, I said I would follow up with you in 7 days' time. I said I would follow up with you in 3 days' time. What is now, your decision?
that's
So yeah, I think that very much
It's so
across the
easy though.
board of
You're like,
dresses, that may challenge, doesn't it?
and that that's a good approach. But
Yeah.
it is easy in the moment to forget it or just get a little
Hmm.
bit carried away. And I'd say, I would not hold back. Like if you're on that call, Zoe, and you could see that there was a bit of hesitation perhaps in his body language, he was
Hmm.
maybe just being a little bit, I don't know, uncommitted, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing wrong with saying, and again, it's not being aggressive, it's all in the way that you say
Hmm.
these things. Zoe, I can see that you're perhaps a little bit unsure. I appreciate, obviously, you do need to speak to your business partner. Is there anything concerning you, or is there anything that we can talk about right
Hmm.
now? And just open it, invite that conversation. If you've done all
Hmm.
that good stuff, you've built that good, strong relationship, you've been a good listener
Yeah.
to somebody, they should feel able to open up and be able to say, so start
Hmm.
coming up with perhaps objections that they've got going on. Actually, it's the budget that's worrying me. I see that
Yeah.
your payment terms are 14 days, that we don't tend to work in that way, and I'm not sure my business partner
Hmm.
will be happy with it. Okay, no problem. Let me see if we can make an allowance and change that. Would that change things for you? And suddenly you're kind of getting into what the objections are and if you are able to overcome them that way.
Yeah, 100%, because it's about overcoming that objection. And if you need to have a script, guys, or bullet points near you to make sure that you're not asking for the business, because that's one of the other people, the feedback that we get, what the other people say to us within our kind of circle in terms of business community or with clients is, when they reflect back on their sales and their follow-up, they realize they actually didn't ask for the business,
Yeah.
or they didn't allocate that time enough for the follow-up to ask for the business. And we normally share top tips like, well, make it fun, make it something that you want to do rather than you don't want to do. Reward yourself. This is a technique Caroline gave
Yep.
us. She gave us a pack of Monopoly money in our sales office, and we had. And she basically said, and she meant it, she came into the office every week and she said, every week I'm going to come and look at your desk, and whoever has the most money on their desk will get a prize from me as a reward for doing a good job.
Yeah, love that.
And
I
it
love that.
sometimes was like a Freddo. It sometimes was like she once gave me a purple hippo, and it were like
Oh,
to, just little things like that.
cute.
But when we look at, body language and stuff, I'm very much about giving.
Yeah.
And I'm a giver in terms of I love giving gifts. I love that kind of, people to feel special and stuff. And she saw that in me, that learning development. So she knows that somebody coming in to an office environment to check on how I'm doing, to reward me for my efforts, even just with small gestures, motivated me to do better. And that allowed me in my sales roles to get the highest conversions and be the top sales executive within the cluster teams. So it does work, guys. We're not wanting, you to feel overwhelmed with these tips and advice that we're giving you to follow up more. I think ultimately it's do what works for you, allocate the time, put in the time to follow up with them when they're on the sales calls, because
Yeah.
so it feels easier and more comfortable to
Yeah.
do. And reward yourself for your efforts, because you can't really pour from an empty cup. Is there any more kind of top tips that you can share, Helen, with working with your small business owners in terms of
Well,
how they could improve that kind of sales conversation or follow-up scenario?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if I would always connect with who you're talking to on social, and I don't mean perhaps their personal Facebook and then just start liking every photo they do at the weekend and taking their kids out to a park, because they might be like, that's a little bit weird. But if you've had this conversation with someone, I
Very
will
much
always
so. I've
connect.
had that.
Yeah,
I've had
it's,
that.
yeah, it's a bit odd, right?
Yeah.
A little bit too much. But I would always take the time just to connect with them on LinkedIn. If you don't remember to say let's connect on LinkedIn or anything, that's fine. But just send them a LinkedIn request. I say LinkedIn, it's because obviously it's a B2B kind of professional social channel.
Yeah.
But if you're more on Instagram or Facebook, that's fine. Like, make a judgment on it, and just drop them a note, maybe 1 or 2 days later, and just say, um, I really enjoyed our conversation this week and would love
Mhm.
to connect with you here as well. And it's just that you're not pushing, you're not selling, you're just saying, look, as
Mhm.
people, we're two people, and I want to connect with you as well. And
Yeah.
it's a friendly, it's just a friendly kind of prompt to say like,
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. And I think that's a great top tip, and a lot of business owners forget to do it. And it's something like we even do, on networking events that
Yeah,
are online. If we can see there's a few people we're not connected with, we will purposefully either make note of them or connect with them whilst we're on screen and just thank them.
yeah,
Great to be part of your network now. Thought it'd be useful to connect on LinkedIn to continue the conversation. But I 100% agree, and that's the reason why I was laughing, Helen, in terms of I have had people, and a lot of people will say to me, your personal Facebook's not very business focused. And I'll say that is purposeful because I spend so much time on LinkedIn and I spend so much time on my business platforms, as you can imagine, due to my area of expertise. My personal Facebook is my personal Facebook, and I don't really accept a lot of people onto it unless I see you as a friend and
yeah.
a business associate, because I have had that where people have gone back to 2008 when I first, like, or 2006
Oh
when I
wow.
first got Facebook and been liking pictures of my placement year in New York.
Yeah, it's too much.
They would have had to, and I mean search for that. They've
Wow.
spent time on my platform, and it always makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. And that
That's
is the
it. Yeah,
worst thing you can do, guys, is to make somebody that you are trying to sell to feel uncomfortable because they ultimately feel like they're not heard,
that's
and
it. That's it.
you're not the right thing, and you might have done all that effort and all that work to ask for permission and make sure that you can support them in the wants of the needs in that conversation, and they're just about there on that sales to say yes, and then they go and do something like that,
Yeah,
and you go all the way back to kind of square one. So I
that's it.
100% agree with Helen. Connect with them, follow up with them, be purposeful with them. Don't just follow up and then ghost them, but connect with them and be purposeful with them in the right way on the right platform that works for them.
That's it.
So if you forget to say, can we connect on LinkedIn, like Helen's mentioned, put it into your proposal. Put it into email follow up. Send them a message when you're connecting saying, it'd be really lovely to chat to you today. I thought we would be best to connect on here as well so we can keep in touch and you can see what it's like to be a part of my network. Be purposeful and make sure it's the right platform for them.
That's it. I would, yeah, absolutely agree and echo all of that. And I'd also say if you're doing that sales call, we talked a lot about kind of solo business owners, one person making a
Hmm.
decision so far, but if you're talking to a slightly bigger business, they've perhaps got a business partner, there's a marketing director, or there's just other
Yeah.
stakeholders involved in this decision. I would connect with them and, just say, I need to check with so and so. Okay,
Hmm.
great. Well, may I have his or her email address too? And then I can share it to you both. Make sure you connect
Hmm.
with them on LinkedIn and say, Zoe and I have just had this lovely conversation.
Yeah.
Your name was mentioned, and I would love to connect with you too. And try to make sure that everybody that's involved in this is connected.
Yeah.
That you're connecting with as well,
Yeah.
and making
Hmm.
people feel involved.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think one of the last top tips I would give you as well with Helen's advice is to that permission piece, that ask for permission. And that comes with making sure that the person you're having the meeting with, if it's a sales conversation, is the decision maker.
Yeah,
So, for example, as Helen's just mentioned, if you find that it's the finance director that you need to speak to, ask if they're available too to come along because it'd be nice to meet them. Um, or the follow-up conversation that we've mentioned in the topic of not to sale or to sale is ask them if they're available for the follow-up meeting, because if they're the decision maker or part of the decision maker process, we can't really move forward without them. So yeah, I love that, Helen, about connecting with everyone involved and making sure everyone feels involved, because you'll make a bigger impact that way, and ultimately they'll make a decision quicker if they
yeah,
feel valued and they feel listened to, because ultimately, like we say, that's what sales is. It's a
That's it.
conversation, and very much it's that right to make a recommendation. So it's been amazing. You know, guys, our avid listeners, we like to ensure that we're not taking up too much of your day, and we hope you've enjoyed this podcast over the past 30 minutes for episode 33 on the topic of to sell or not to sell. That is the question. So let me ask you the question, guys. Are you now going to sell more, or are you going to follow up more? And we hope that answer is yes. But Helen, if anyone did want to connect with you, with follow on this conversation as an expert within sales in your field, how would they do that? Where do they need to come and connect with you to find out more?
Sure. So I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So if you search Helen Coston, Coston as it is on the screen, you could definitely find me there. I do loads of like LinkedIn lives, Q&A sessions. You know, they're completely free and open. And you know, if you want to learn more about selling or you've just got a question, please come along. I always love meeting new people. And my website is helencoston.co.uk. If you want to kind of go there, I've got a newsletter as well that you can sign up for through that if you'd like to.
Amazing, and definitely do that, guys. We're a big advocate of the experts that we showcase through the hub. Go and follow them, go and subscribe to their newsletters to get additional values. I'm sure you'll see us on one of Helen's LinkedIn lives in due course, because we're a big advocate to make sure that, you know, we support their businesses back, because that's how it works, full circle, right? And we just encourage you to have more conversations. Don't think of the follow-up as something to avoid. Think of it something to celebrate. Reward yourself, allocate the time, and hopefully these top tips that through this episode can help you do that more productively. And if it does and you see a change and an impact, we'd love to know. Just comment below if you're within the hub in our private Facebook group with our clients, or comment on our YouTube channel, or even drop me an email, guys, hello@askzoe.co.uk. We would love to see the results of the knowledge shared. We've just had it recently yesterday where a client came to listen to one of our experts in copy and content. So much so it resonated. She's booked her to rewrite her whole website. That's what we love. We love people to work with those that we work with and that we celebrate and champion through the hub community for business development and marketing. So I'm going to leave it there. We're going to wrap up. Go and give Helen a follow. Go and subscribe to YouTube at Ask Zoe01 to join the Hub Collective. And if you feel you would like that accountability, access to our experts first before anyone else, you can join the Hub for as little as £97 per month. All you have to do to sign up to that, guys, is go to the website askzoe.co.uk and sign up under the hub, or you can drop me an email as mentioned and we can have a confidential call and get the right fit for your business too. So thanks again, Helen. It's been amazing, and we'll see you all
Thank you for having
soon.
me.
You're welcome. We'll see you all soon. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.